Good morning, children. I welcome you all to today's video class. In today's video class, actually what you are going to see, we are going to start with a new chapter. In today's video class is going to start with a new chapter. This chapter was actually written by Jerome K. Jerome. The chapter was entitled A Bicycle in Good Repair. This chapter has critical humor in it. If you read the lines of this chapter, you can enjoy it. It is very hilarious to read. Yeah, let's get into the chapter. So, this chapter, A Bicycle in Good Repair, was written by Jerome K. Jerome. It is full of humor. You can find the critical humor in it. Okay, then this lesson gives us a message. What is the message? You know that everyone likes to drive car. They want to go for a long distance. They want to travel for a long distance by driving the car. Do you know common man's car? This lesson gives us a message that common man's car is bicycle. Yeah, no doubt in it. Bicycle may be considered as a common man's car. Do you know the reason for it? Because it is the cheapest mode of conveyance and transport. So bicycle can be considered as the cheapest mode of conveyance and transport. But see how to keep bicycle. You can go for a long ride on bicycle. Really it is very pleasant to ride on cycle. You will get it. If you ride on cycle, if you pedal the cycle for a long distance, you will have such a hilarious and pleasant experience. But for that, the cycle should be kept in good condition. It should be periodically checked by the mechanic. It should be overhauled periodically. Then only it will be very pleasant to go for long ride. Okay, that's very important. So, bicycle riding, really it is a very good experience. And if it is in good condition, really it is enjoyable. The bicycle ride is enjoyable only if it is in good condition. So, before going on a long pleasure ride, one should get it thoroughly overhauled by an expert mechanic. Here, throughout this lesson, the humor is scattered all around in the activities of small children, and their conversation also makes us to laugh. One would burst with laughter while reading this lesson. Okay, children, so let us get into the chapter. Let's get into the chapter. This chapter is consisting of two parts. Part 1 deals with the following things. Okay, first to begin with, plan for riding. One day, the narrator was invited for a long bicycle riding by his friend. He was overwhelmed the very idea of going for a long ride on bicycle. So immediately he accepted. He was ready. He told his friend, yes, I too was ready to come with you for a long bicycle riding next day. So his friend's proposal was accepted for a long bicycle ride on the following day. What happens? The narrator got up early next day and started waiting for his friend for a long time. But his friend came oftener late, and then immediately he asked his friend about his preparedness for the long bicycle riding. Narrator told him, expressed his willingness, yes, by all means, now I am ready for bicycle riding. My bicycle also is ready for riding. The narrator told his friend like that. Immediately his friend, let me check out the condition of your bicycle. Unless it is in good condition, we cannot go for long riding on bicycle. His friend told him. When he told like this, he immediately, what he did, do you know, children? His friend, the narrator's friend, pretended to be an expert on bicycle. Wow, let me check the condition of your bicycle, whether it is in good condition or not. I would like to check it. Expressing this very idea, he took the bicycle by the front wheel and shook it violently. He gave a violent shock to the bicycle by lifting up the front wheel with the pole. Immediately his friend, the narrator, told, oh my dear friend, don't do such things. Don't hurt my machine. What you are doing? What do you think in your mind? I know my bicycle. I know the condition of my bicycle. It is in good condition. Then his friend said, hi, my dear friend, the front wheel wobbles. It is not in good condition. The front wheel is not in good condition. It is so dangerous to go for a long ride on bicycle when the front wheel is not properly fitted. So it wobbles. The other didn't like his shaking. Again and again he said, don't do that. You will hurt my machine. The friend would not listen to his word. He asked, okay, then his friend asked, hey, my dear friend, I know, I'm a good mechanic. I know how the front wheel should be fitted properly. You do one thing, let me remove the front wheel and then I will refit it in proper position. You please go and bring me a hammer. Narrator's friend asked him to bring a hammer to set the wheel correct. Then what happens? The other went to the tool shed. So checking the condition of the cycle, his friend told that the front wheel is wobbling. It is so dangerous to ride on the cycle with the wobbling wheel. So he asked the narrator to go and fetch him a hammer to set the cycle, to set the wheel in correct position. So his friend, that is the narrator, went to bring the hammer from the tools shed. In the meantime, what happens? His friend had taken out the front wheel. In the meanwhile, his friend had taken out the front wheel from the fork and he kept the front wheel between his legs. Oh, the wheel is not wobbling because the reason he remarked that as if the bearing were all wrong. The wheel, front wheel is wobbling because the bearing is not in good condition. So the bearing were all wrong. He found fault with the bearings. When he lifted the cycle by its front wheel, he told his friend that the front wheel is wobbling. It is not properly fitted in the fork. The first remark he has made. Next, after removing the wheel from the fork, he remarked that all the bearings were wrong. So he found fault now with the bearings. Then the other asked him, hey, my dear friend, don't give trouble it anymore. Don't give any trouble. Don't give any more trouble to my machine. But his friend was not in a position to listen to the words of the narrator. What he did, I will show you the picture. See. See. First picture. This picture shows you that narrator's friend lifted the bicycle by holding the front wheel and fork in his hand, and he gave a violent shock to it. Though the narrator asked his friend not to do such things, he paid little attention to the words of the narrator. See, he started to remove the front wheel from the fork. So he started to remove the front wheel from the fork. Next, what he did, he asked his friend to go and bring him the hammer. So, no other way to go. The narrator accepted the words of his friend. He thought that he may know something about the cycle repairing. Therefore, he went to the tools hit room. From there, he brought the hammer. In the meantime, his friend plucked out or he removed that front wheel from the fork, and he kept the front wheel in between his legs. See, this picture shows. He removed the front wheel. So, the other, before in the meantime, his friend had taken out the front wheel from the fork. And what he did, he held it. See, he held it between his legs. And then he told, the front wheel is wobbling. See, here he gave a violent show to the front wheel as well as the fork. Then he removed the front wheel and he plucked out. He took out the front wheel from the fork and held it between his legs. Could you see, children? Could you understand what narrator's friend was doing with the cycle? He acted as if he were a good mechanic, but he didn't know anything. That is the real fact. Narrator's friend didn't know anything about cycle repairing. He can screw or unscrew, that anyone can do. With that little knowledge, he thought that he would be a great mechanic. So he started doing all such things. So the narrator asked him not to do such things. But he removed the front wheel without the permission of the narrator. He kept hold and he kept it in between, held it between his legs. Then after checking the wobbling nature of the front wheel, he called the narrator, "Oh, my dear friend, see, the front wheel of the cycle is not in proper condition. The front wheel of the cycle is not in proper condition. It is wobbling." Wobbling means shaking. It is so dangerous to ride on a cycle with wobbling wheel. Let me check it. I will refit it. I will put it in correct order, correct condition. Then it won't wobble, it won't shake. With that word, he removed. He made another remark. What remark he has made? Fault is with the bearings. You know that small iron balls, bearings. They are kept on that surface of the iron balls, only the wheel rotates. Some basic mechanism of a cycle. I hope everyone, you know that. So, bearings were all wrong. Now the narrator's friend gave a second remark, as if the bearings were all wrong. He found fault with the bearings. The other asked him, "My dear friend, don't give so much trouble to my machine. Don't give that trouble." He requested, but he paid little attention. He paid little attention to the words of the narrator. What he did, so his friend, however, opened the wheel. And what happened? So without hearing the words, he removed the gear. He removed it, wheel fork, and held it. He found fault with the bearings. He said about the repairing the machine. He unscrewed it. That's all. And all the little iron balls rolled away. When he unscrewed, see, this picture shows very clearly. When he unscrewed, he thought that the bearings were all wrong. That's the reason that the front wheel is wobbling. So he unscrewed it. And then what happens? All the iron balls rolled away here and there. Then they collected. He called, shouted, "Oh, my dear friend, come. Help me to collect all the rolling iron balls." The friend, however, opened the wheel and they rolled out all about a dozens of little iron balls. He cried and asked the author to help him. And both of them gathered the balls. He also added that the loss of the balls, his friend now made another remark. You just to find out all the balls, you collect all the small iron balls. They are the bearings on the surface of which only the wheels rotate. So we have to collect all the balls. The loss of the balls would make a serious difference. He made another remark to the machine. It took half an hour. Nearly for half an hour, more than half an hour, they were looking out here and there, all the rolled out bearings, small iron balls. They had been able to gather only 16 balls. The other put them for safety in his hat. He removed his hat and he put all the iron balls in the hat. So the first part of this lesson comes to an end with this very idea. So let me recall, let me explain once again the things happened in the first part of this lesson. So once the narrator was called for a long bicycle riding by his friend. He immediately accepted it. He liked it. Next day he was waiting for his friend with his cycle. His friend came and he asked the narrator about his mind state, his state of mind for the riding. Yes, he told, yes, I am ready. My cycle is also in good condition. But his friend considered himself as a good mechanic. Let me check the condition of a bicycle, because we are going for a long ride. Unless the cycle is in good condition, we cannot go for a long ride. So with this expression, he just lifted the front wheel and the fork of the cycle and shook it violently. His friend, narrator stopped. Ask him to stop doing such things. Don't do such things. My cycle is in good condition. No, you don't know. See, the front wheel is wobbling. So it is so dangerous to ride the cycle with this wobbling wheel. With that very remark, he also told the fork is also not in good condition. Bring me a hammer from the tool shed. Let me fit it rightly. His friend asked him not to do such things, but he didn't pay any attention to the narrator's word. Narrator's friend asked him to bring a hammer, no other way to go. He went and he came back with the hammer. In the meanwhile, do you know, children, what narrator's friend did? He just removed the front wheel from the fork and held it between his legs. His friend came, the narrator came and shocked. Wow, what happened? Oh, my dear friend, you removed the front wheel from the cycle. What you are going to do with that wheel? You don't do any other things. Don't hurt my machine. He requested his friend. But he was not in a mood to hear the words of his friend, that is the narrator. He told narrator, my dear friend, just wait, don't worry, I won't do anything wrong. I will do something good for your cycle only. Okay, with that word, with that expression, what he did, he made another remark. Wow, the cycle front wheel is wobbling like this because the bearings were not fitted properly. He found fault with the bearings. With this expression, he removed the bearings. He unscrewed the bearings, that's all. All the small iron balls rolled out on the floor. Then he shouted, oh, my dear friend, come on. Just to gather, found out all the small iron balls which were rolled down on the floor. Then his friend narrator helped his friend. For more than half an hour, both of them were looking out for the rolled down small iron balls. They are called bearings. They must be in good condition. Otherwise, the front wheel won't rotate properly. Okay, fine. Then his friend also made another remark. Do you know, children, what remark he had made? Yeah. If the bearings, you just found out all small iron balls. If anything is found missing, then your wheel will not be fitted properly. And then he also told that gather all the balls. He also added that the loss of balls would make a serious difference to the machine. So after half an hour, they collected some balls, around 11 balls. Out of 16, they collected only 11 small iron balls. And for safety, what the narrator did, he removed his hat and he put all the small iron balls in the hat. Now, the narrator was like this, waiting next to my friend, what is going to do with my machine. He requested, my dear friend, don't do any hurt, don't do anything wrong, don't do any hurt hereafter, leave my cycle as it is. Then his friend told, wait, let me check, let me do some work I am doing to make your cycle in good condition. Second part now starts. What is going to happen in the second part of this lesson? I know that you are all very eager to know that. Yeah, wait, children. Let me explain the second part of this lesson. In the second part, what ridiculous things the narrator's friend did. Next, the friend handled the chain. His attention falls on the chain. Part 2. So, in the part 1, he removed the wheel. He reasoned for that removing the wheel is it is wobbling. It is not in good condition. It is shaking. Then he remarked the setup of the ball bearings. The bearings were not in good condition. Second remark he has made. Then second part, third remark. His friend handled the chain. Now he find fault with the chain. He told his friend. The friend now wanted to see the chain. As well as for that he had to take out the gearbox. So, chain. Now the narrator was told by his friend, "Hi, my dear friend, in your cycle the chain is not fitted properly. It has been loosely fitted. It is not straightly or correctly fitted. See, it has not been fitted properly with the gearbox. If you want to check the chain and if you want to change or if you want to correct the position of the chain, then you have to remove the gearbox. Unless otherwise you cannot refit the chain in its proper position." So, now his attention falls on the gearbox. Now, the narrator's friend wants to remove the gearbox or he wants to open the gearbox. When he told his friend, "See, the chain is not in proper condition, I just want to open the gearbox, unscrew the gearbox, let me check the position of the things, the mechanism of the gearbox, then only I can set your chain in proper order." With that word he started to open the gearbox. See, like this, chain. So he wants to check the position of the chain. Narrator's friend told him that the chain has been loosely fitted, it is not in proper condition. That's the thing, that the cycle is not in good condition. If the chain is not fitted properly, you find it very difficult to pedal the cycle. That is quite common. If you take your bicycle to the nearby cycle repairing shop, there the mechanic might have told you this word. If the chain is not fitted properly, you find it very difficult to pedal the cycle. Isn't it? Yeah. So, now the narrator's friend wants to check the gearbox. Then his friend told, the narrator told, wow. The other tried to stop. "Hey, my dear friend, wait. Don't open the gearbox. Because gearbox is the important area, it is an important mechanism in a bicycle." So he told, some experienced friend had advised him not to open the gearbox. The narrator told his friend, "Please don't open the gearbox." The other tried to stop him with this expression. He told him that the idea of his friends, experienced friends, had advised him never to touch the gearbox. So gearbox should not be touched. Never to touch the gearbox. So the narrator stopped his friend from opening the gearbox. If anything went wrong with the gearbox, then bicycle would become useless. He told his friend in such a way, "Hey, my dear friend, don't open the gearbox. If it goes wrong, or if anything went wrong, what would happen? The bicycle would become useless." He alarmed him. He cautioned, the narrator cautioned his friend with this word. Yes, already he heard such things from his experienced friends. This is true, children. I hope you know that. The gear cycle, you might have ridden on it. If you ride the gear cycle, if anything goes wrong in the gearbox, immediately you have to, it is so safe to take it to the nearby mechanical shop or to the cycle mart. There the experienced mechanics are there, they will set it right. If you try to open the gearbox, that's all. You don't know how to open, how to assemble. Both are difficult task. Only those people, they have good experience in doing such things. But narrator's friend, out of his curiosity, tried to open the gearbox. he pay little attention to the advice, to the words of narrator. The friend was, however, not willing to accept anything. He was not in the mood to accept or to hear the words of the narrator. He claimed to know all about bicycle. My dear friend, don't think that I am novice. I don't know anything about this mechanics. Don't think like that. I am a good mechanic. I know everything about the bicycle. He acted as if he were a good mechanic of bicycle. Okay. So the second part deals with the chain and the gearbox. Now the narrator's friend attention was on the chain. He thought that the chain was not in proper condition. It has been fitted very loosely, not tightly fitted with that gearbox. If you want to change the position of the chain, if you want to make any alteration in the position of the chain, then you have to open the gearbox, no doubt. So now his attention falls on the gearbox. When he was about to open the gearbox, immediately the narrator cautioned him not to touch it, not to open it. If anything went wrong, then the bicycle would become useless. That advice he heard from his experienced friends or mechanic. But the narrator's friend was not in a mood to listen to the advice of his friend. What he did, he not only took up the key, he took up the gearbox. He removed the gearbox. He made two pieces of it, that's all. And then, but he lost some of the screws of the gearbox. He lay on the path growling for screws. He made two pieces of it. Gearbox. He made two pieces of it, and he lost some of the screws. So he made it two. Many a time the other felt like throwing his friend away. He got irritated because if anything went wrong, then the total cycle will be useless. He could, however, not be so discourteous to his friend. Suppose if the same thing happens to you, what will you do? You can't just be discourteous to your friend. The friend now gave up looking for the screws. So he did such a blunder. So, but he did not stop. He took out gear case and misplaced screws. That's all. Gear case. You can find some good screws. Some screws on it. It should be carefully removed, unscrewed or screwed, and misplaced some of the screws. He played with the screws first by tightening. Then what another ridiculous things he did, do you know that? He gave his attention to the chain now. So he opened the gear case. He didn't pay any attention to his friend's word, and then he gave his attention to the chain. He tightened it so much. He tightened the chain so much that it would not move. What will happen? You know that, everybody knows. If you tighten the chain, then you cannot just pedal it. You have to force to pedal the cycle. If the chain is fitted very tightly with the gear case, it should be properly fitted. There should be a proper fluctuation. There should be a proper propelling. Then only when the chain starts to move with the wheels, teeth wheels, then you can easily pedal the cycle like this. You can easily pedal the cycle like this. If the chain is fitted, you can't, you try, but you can't pedal the cycle. So first the narrator's friend did that blunder. So he tightened, he could however not to be discussed, so tightened it so much, chain, that it would not move at all. Then, I did some mistakes. It should not be tightened in such a way. Too much I tightened. Then he loosened it till it was twice as loose as before. So now it's shorter. Loosening the fitness of the chain. Then the friend decided to put the front wheel back into place. So, two things he did. First, he wants to fit the chain in correct position with the gear case. For that he opened the gearbox Though he was asked by the narrator not to do such things, he paid little attention to the words of the narrator. He forcefully opened the gear case. What happened? He misplaced some of the screws, valuable screws were there on the gear case. Without such screws, you cannot fit it. Refitting or mantling and dismantling for both screws are very important. Even you might have seen at your home, suppose when the electricians remove the fan and the ball bearings and the leaves of the fan, then how he put it in its correct order. So whenever you remove, you can watch. If you pay a visit to the nearby cycle mechanic shop, there you can see how the wheels are fitted by the mechanic. You can do one thing, you just sit and watch, and then you make a note of it. It is very interesting. Yeah, of course. See, whenever he removes a wheel from the cycle, whenever he removes a chain from the gearbox, he carefully collects all the screws. When he unscrew, he put the screw safely in a box. Now, because screws are very much important for to refit. That's important. Without, suppose if you miss or if you lose some of the screws, you cannot replace the correct part. You cannot replace the correct part in its position. So it's very important. So he unscrew it. But he missed some of the screws. He cannot keep it safe. But he won't pay that much attention to the last screws, and he started doing his work continuously. So he started first, he set right the position of the chain with the gearbox. First what he did, he tightened it so much. When you gave that much tight, it would not move. So it didn't allow the wheel to move. Then what he did, he loosened it till it was twice as loose as before. Then again it starts to wobbling. Then the friend decided to put the front wheel back in its place. Now the narrator's friend, now I corrected the position of the chain and I fitted the chain in correct position with the gearbox. Now next what I have to do? I have to fit the front wheel into the fork. So all these activities of his friends was watched by the narrator very carefully. But he was not able to stop him from doing all such nonsense. So he was just standing nearby his friend. So the narrator put the wheel in tight position. The front wheel was fixed. Now the front wheel was fixed. As soon as it was done, what happened? The friend burst out laughing. When the front wheel was fixed, after fixing the front wheel, the narrator's friend burst out laughing. She was so surprised to the narrator. Why this fellow started to laugh immediately after fixing the front wheel? He said that they had forgotten the balls. Without putting the ball bearings without fixing the small iron balls, they fixed the front wheel. Then how it rotates? Without ball bearings, if you just fix the front wheel, it will never rotate. It only rotates on the surface of the small iron balls. So without fixing the iron balls, they just fit the front wheel. So the wheel was taken out again, and then the narrator's friend accepted. The narrator looked for his hat in which he had put the ball safely, but the hat lay upturned and makes the balls were scattered. Though he kept the balls so safe on his hat, now without fixing the iron balls, they fitted the front wheel. Now his friend was instructed by the narrator, nonsense, without putting the iron balls in its proper position, you fit the front wheel just to remove it. Then we have to place the small iron balls, that is bearings. After that only we can fix the wheel on it. Okay, narrator's friend accepted it. Yeah, I have forgotten. He laughed. Narrator's friend laughed. And he also admitted that he was an ass. Yes, I am an ass. Why he said like that? Because the reason was that they had forgotten to put the iron balls in its proper place. Without such iron ball, small iron balls, the wheel never rotates. You cannot just move the cycle from its place. If you want to move the cycle, the wheel should rotate. Otherwise, how can you move the cycle? Only thing you have to lift it, that's all. So, the wheel was taken out again. Then his friend asked narrator, you kindly bring the ball bearings which you have collected and kept in the hat. Yeah. He went to collect the balls. But what happens? The narrator looked for his hat, but he had put the ball safely, but the hat lay upturned. The ball, this is the hat. Just imagine, children, this is a hat. Inside you put all the small balls. Now the hat, due to the heavy wind, the hat lay upturned. Then all the balls were so scattered. Unfortunately, they collected only 11 balls out of 16. They could find only 11 out of the 16 balls, which were put in the wheel, no other way. How they fit these 11 balls? They fixed 6 on one side and 5 on the other. 6 on one side and 5 on the other side. So now instead of out of 16 small iron balls, they had only 11. With that only they have to fit the wheel, no other way. So what they did, they fixed 6 on one side and the 5 on the other side. Now when the wheel was fixed, it was really wobbling because the ball bearings were not properly fitted. Now the wheel starts to wobble. The bicycle began to wobble even more than it had wobbled before. After fitting the front wheel in its proper place of the fork, the front wheel was very much wobbling. Really, it is very much wobbling. So the bicycle began to wobble even more than it had wobbled before. And then more than that, do you know one thing? He dismantled a lot of parts of the cycle and laid them the gravel path. Then a sarcastic command was made by the writer. What was it? Let me explain. All these ridiculous activities of narrator's friend were watched by the narrator very carefully, but the narrator couldn't stop him. The narrator was not in a position to stop his friend, so he couldn't be so tough and rough with his friend. So now and then he made gentle remarks. Now and then he tried to stop his friend from doing all such nonsenses with gentle words. But narrator's friend was not in a position to hear his friend's word. Now what happens? So now he made a sarcastic remark. He remarked that he appreciated his confidence and hopefulness. He appreciated his confidence and hopefulness. Narrator appreciated his friend. Wow! You are a man of good confidence. You are a man of good courageousness. You have a good hope of doing all these things. Really, I have to appreciate. You don't know anything at all, but you have a confidence of doing all such things. That is the greatest thing. So sarcastically, ironically, narrator made such a commands. Sometimes you may commands some of your friends. Suppose if they don't know anything, but they are trying to do those things. thinking that as if they were good in that part. Sometimes it may happen in everyone's life. So he remarked that he appreciated his confidence and hopefulness. With that only he tried to do all these things. Actually he doesn't know anything except to screw and unscrew. He doesn't know any mechanism of the cycle. These words, however, what happens? Encouraged his friend. So finally he decided to refix the gear case in its proper place. For this, what he has to do, he had to lie on the ground with his head between the wheels. So he has to, like this, he has to go in between two wheels. He has to lie down on the ground. Then only he can fix like this. See the cycle? See? I'll show you. Here. He has to lie down in between these two wheels. He has to lie down like this. Then he has to fit like this. He has to fit. So, gear gas, he started doing now. He had to lie on the ground with his head between the wheels. Now, the bicycle seemed to be showing its spirit because he did all blunders. So, now the bicycle, the right time for the bicycle to show its spirit. It fell on him. Yeah, the narrator humorously says, the cycle wanted to show its spirit, therefore it fell on his friend again and again and hurt him. It seemed that a fight was going on between a man and machine. Yeah, a fight. Yeah, fight between a man and machine. Actually, the situation was looking like that only. It seemed that a fight was going on between, because they had forgotten to put the proper things. So it seemed that a fight was going on. One moment, see the humorous expression of the narrator. At one moment you can find the bicycle would be on the gravel path and his friend was on the bicycle, on the top of it. Okay. At one moment, the bicycle was on the floor and his friend was on the top of it. Then the next position would be reversed. What happened? He was on the floor and the bicycle was on him. How nice it is. He lost his temper and he tried to punish the bicycle. It was a sort of fight between a man and a machine. At 1:15, the man thought that the work was done, the work was completed. He himself was so dirty and bleeding. He cleaned himself and the narrator then sent him home. So let me sum up the second part of this lesson. In the second part, he paid his attention to the chain. He wants to change the position of the chain. For that he has to open the gear box. His friend stopped him from doing all such nonsense things, but he didn't listen to the words of his friend. He just opened the gear case. He lost some of the screws also. Then Now he tried to change the position of the chain. He wants to fit it tight with the gear, that wheel, the teeth wheel. But what happened? He tightened it. So the chain did not move. It stopped like this. Then he loosened it. Then again it starts to wobbling. He doesn't know the proper position of the chain. Unless the chain is fitted properly, tightly, correctly with the teeth wheel of the gearbox, it helps you to pedal smoothly. Unless otherwise it is very difficult to pedal the cycle. So he did all these blunders. Then he just tried to fit it in a right position, but he failed in his attempt. Then again he paid his attention to refit the front wheel to the fork. He did it, but again after fitting the front wheel with the fork, he found the mistake. What mistakes he did it without putting the ball bearings, that is the small iron balls, he fitted the wheel, refitted the wheel. Then his friend was criticized by the narrator. He removed the wheel again. Then they put the iron balls, small iron balls in its place. But out of 16 balls, they could found only 11 balls. One side 6, other side 5 were fitted. Then he fixed the front wheel in its position. Then next he tried to put the gear case in its proper position. For that he put his head in between the wheels and he tried to fit it with some tools. But sometimes the cycle fell on him. It started to show its temper. It hurt him. Then sometimes one can find narrator's friend on the cycle. The cycle was on the ground, he was on the top of it. But sometimes what happened, he was on the ground, the cycle was on him. He was on, the narrator's friend was on the ground, cycle was on him. So these ridiculous things continuously for sometimes. And at 1:15, the process was completed. So he heart bleeding. He himself was dirty and bleeding. He cleaned himself finally. The narrator sent his friend home safely. With the last, it was difficult to decide. Sarcastically, the narrator, Jerome made a sarcastic remark to the readers. Can you guess, children? It was difficult to decide who had suffered more. The friend or the bicycle. It's very humorous. It is so funny to learn. Can you guess it, children? Yeah, of course. You just you have heard the very good narration of this lesson, and then you just go through the lines of this lesson. You can understand, you can comprehend what the narrator wants to say. The ridiculous activities done by the narrator's friend, as himself acted as a mechanic. Finally he hurt, and then he also damaged to some extent the cycle. If you guess who had suffered more, the cycle or the narrator's friend, just call and tell me. Till that, thank you, children, for your kind and patient listening, and don't waste your time, and read immediately after the completion of this video class. You just go through the lesson and note down the hard words. They refer to a good dictionary and then write the meaning of the hard words. If you don't know, call me freely. I will help you. Thank you, children. Have a nice day.